So I think we're live now, and just trying to view on the other side, the little window to make sure we're seeing stuff. So perfect. So hey everyone, just starting a couple of minutes early just to make sure everything's ready for when we hit the top of the hour. Hope everyone's doing well. Thank you for confirmation. That's good. It's always checked. Is the vision working? Is the sound working? So that's awesome. Thank you. A huge thank you for hitting the 300,000 subscribers. Obviously, it's cool to hit milestones along the journey. So thank you for all your support and for watching the channel. Continuing to hopefully enjoy the content. I know saying, and I guess I'll kind of start with that, is people always ask, are you going to change anything, like things coming to the channel? No. I think I enjoy the type of content I'm creating. I like doing the whiteboard and the demos and switching it up occasionally, but my plan is just carry on doing what I do, the same type of format, the same type of content. For those that follow the channel closely, obviously I'm updating the Azure masterclass right now. So that's kind of the big focus for the next couple of months. Just that's a huge amount of work, so focus on updating that. But no plans to modify anything or do anything differently. I enjoy the channel. I think people seem to relate to the content. So just going to carry on doing what I'm doing. So that's obviously I did move this year. I'm now in North Idaho. So I used to be in Texas. So it's a pretty big jump to the other end of the country. And I now live in kind of a foresty area. It's snow all around me right now. So it's just a nice change. So with that, I kind of wanted to jump into sort of the questions. Please just type them in the chat. And the first is the 300. So in the little thing that I'm holding the 300, it's not meat. I did a little video as an intro to the 300, and it's a cake pop. So we made 3 cakes. Well, I say we, my wife really did all the work. But we baked 3 cakes and we broke them all up. You put icing, you mix it all up, and then we shaped 300 and covered it in red chocolate. So that's a cake because my kids love cake pops. So it seemed like a good opportunity to make a giant cake. So that was really the plan about that. So how is your feeling doing my usual thing, explaining drawing at the recent... Okay, so that was it, Ignite conference in front of a lot of people compared to doing it at home. It's very different. Obviously at home, there's no one watching. At home, the setup is exactly how I like the setup to be. So I have multiple screens on the floor. One of them I have like a sketch of the picture I want to draw. One of them I can see what I'm presenting. One of them I can have notes available. So I had a lot more control of the environment. Whereas when you're up on stage, there's a screen and there's a certain amount of space to put notes and things, so it's harder to organize the stuff. But it was fun. I mean, it was cool getting to interact with the people. Obviously, if you saw that, there was huge technical challenges. The display dongle they gave me kept cutting out, so only half of what I tried to demo would actually show up. So that was less than perfect. They actually gave it to me at the end of the conference. They was like, here's a momentum, and they'd cut it in half, so no one would ever be cursed with it again. So just me. So that was fun. But no, I mean, it was enjoyable to do. I got to meet a lot of really cool people, but definitely at home in my environment, it's a lot easier to create the content. I have a lot more control over that. So it's cool to do those things, but definitely it's easier to create that kind of content at home. How do I keep up to date? Do you plan your content like before, weekdays, days? So how do I keep up to date is the same as always. I just try and play with the technologies. Now, there's such a vast amount of new stuff coming out. It's impossible to stay current on everything. So I tend to stay more in the security, identity, infrastructure, and yes, the AI space. I don't think anyone can just avoid the AI space. So you have to have some knowledge of that and stay up to date. Obviously, I still do the weekly update, and that's as much as for me as for other people, because it makes me go and dive into and follow what is changing. I use the Azure blog a lot for that. I have particular people on LinkedIn I follow because they post really good announcements of changes around identity and other areas. So that helps me stay current. and I try and play with it. I'll try and read about it so I understand it. So at least then I can try and explain it to other people. So I mean, that's really the way I stay up to date. But you have to be selective these days. It's now impossible to be deep on everything that exists. And one of the reasons I do the videos is to help others learn it. It helps me learn it, because if you try and teach someone else, you have to learn it to a certain level. And I question myself, well, how does this build on things to help me be able to explain it to someone else? But also I end up with my notes. And very commonly, I'll then have to go back when I'm trying to talk about it again, because I'll forget it. And I'll go and look at my notes, and it refreshes things, and it's easier to kind of, oh yeah, I remember that. And so I'll learn something, I'll forget it, and I'll go back and look at my notes and try and learn it again. So that's a big piece of what I do. Content is still mostly weekends. Sunday is my rest day from training, but I still get up at the same time, sort of 3:30, 4 a.m., and then I just work on the YouTube channel. So it might be planning some more of the content, recording it, and then planning the next weeks of content. I'll also typically record a video kind of midweek. If I do post one on Wednesday, I'll record that Tuesday morning before work. And obviously the Azure update, every day I'm kind of looking for the changes. I update my PowerPoint, and I record that on Friday morning before work. So it's not my job still, it's my hobby. And so that stuff all gets done at the weekends and before work. So the same type of thing. Any plans for videos about sort of the fitness things? I saw someone saying about the Spartan. Do you know, I toyed with the idea, and I actually went ahead and created a different channel. I created just John Saville as a YouTube channel. And I was thinking about maybe posting some things more just general hobby related and other stuff, maybe some fitness stuff. It's just a time issue. It's really about, if I start splitting time creating other stuff like that, there's less time on the Azure stuff. And I think the Azure stuff helps people. It helps them in their careers. It helps them learn and do their job. So I wouldn't want to sacrifice that content to go and do something else. That being said, I think if I get to go and do another type of event where you're allowed to wear a camera, because the Ironmans, you're not allowed to wear any cameras. So I can't really do anything fun like that for Ironmans, which is most of the events I do. But if I do something else, I'll probably post the odd video on that. How much and what preparation do you do for each video? And just to be clear, when I'm trying to keep track of the questions, but if it's a question about, are you going to do content on this topic? I never answer those questions. I don't plan that far ahead, and I'll tend to do the topic based on what I'm interested in, what I'm researching for a customer. So I never commit or say I'm not going to on a certain topic. I create what I create based on what I'm working on at any particular time. So I'll never say yay or nay to am I doing something. I don't take requests, as people I've said many times before. I just do what I want. I want to enjoy it, and that's kind of what drives the content I create. So how much preparation? It completely varies video by video. Some of them is something I'm doing day in, day out. I understand it really well, and I can really just think about, okay, well, if I'm explaining this to someone, what would the steps be to introduce it, understand why you care about it, and then build on the knowledge to help someone understand it. Because it's always top of mind. When you create the content, it's not about, oh, I want to tell you this. It's what amount of information can someone digest and retain in any useful way, and then build on that. And so those won't take me that long. It might be a couple of hours of prep. Some of the topics I've done in the past, I have to learn it, and or I think I know it, but again, if I'm going to create content on it, I have to know it really, really well. And so it's a ton of investigation. I am privileged at this point because of the channel's success. The product groups work with me. So I can now fairly easily tap on the shoulder, and a lot of times they tap on my shoulder, is that, hey, can you create content? And I said I don't take requests. That's different when it's the product group. Create content on this, or hey, I want to create content on this. Can I spend an hour with someone who owns this technology? But then I still have to go and read all white papers and try it out and try and get it to work. So some of the videos has been like 20, 30 hours of prep. Like some of the ones when it was verifiable credentials, even some of the passkey stuff. There's a lot to that, and there's a lot of work that goes into that. Updating the masterclass is 10, 15 hours a week just prep, and then it's a 3-hour recording on Sunday morning. So they're a lot of work. So it varies, but it's all about, again, reinforcing knowledge and trying to think about how do you get someone to understand it. During your move, how are you able to maintain such a consistent schedule for your channel? What strategies or tools do you use? So during the move, it was actually really difficult. There's two sides. There's my kind of fitness stuff, and then there's the channel stuff. As we were moving, so we had to get a upright piano down the stairs at my old house, and I was at the bottom of it, and there were two people at the top, and I hadn't fully appreciated the fact that I was wearing socks and the stairs had carpet on them, and that the piano would get exponentially heavier the greater the angle of the tip. And so we're starting to bring it down the stairs, and as it tips more and more, my feet just start slipping away from behind me, and I can do nothing at this point. And I like hurt things, like I damaged stuff trying to keep it in place until we could get it back up the stairs. And so that messed with my training for like 6 months. So I still did stuff, and I'm still suffering a bit from it, but it damaged me. So it makes it harder. You have to change what you're doing because of that injury. But from the channel things, I didn't move up here until the office was basically built. So we bought the lot, we started building the house, and I built the garage, my gym, and my office before I got up here. And you probably noticed my content was a bit lighter in terms of how deep the topics were for a few months, because I still wanted to create the content, but you're building a house. I was living in a travel trailer for 5 months. So when we moved up here, my office was built and my gym was built, but the house wasn't built. So my kids were in a tiny house we were renting. It was like 500 square feet. My wife and I were living in a travel trailer. And so when you're in that scenario and you're building a house, it's pretty difficult to do all the things and the hobby stuff you want to do. But I mean, from a strategy perspective, I'm a very disciplined person. I still got up every morning at the same time. So I still had quite a lot of time to do things. It was just logistically more difficult to do things. But I guess I don't give myself an excuse not to do the stuff. I still have to get up, still need to train. I still have to get up, create the content. And I didn't really give myself a choice, I guess. That's the good answer as I can get. It wasn't like some tool or some special thing. This is what I do. Yes, my circumstances, my environment is a bit different, but this is what I do. And I just kind of carried on doing it. So I guess that's that. Are you planning any books? There's a yes and a no to that. This is a weird answer. Yes, I'm working on something, but it won't be a traditional book that you would need to go and buy. It'll just be free, and it's going to kind of coincide a bit with the Azure masterclass. So it's pretty obvious what my plan is to do around that. But that obviously won't happen until the Azure masterclass is completely updated for the V3. But yes, there is something I'm working on, and my wife's working on it with me as well, so she can do some of the editing elements and the graphics for it and stuff like that, because people do learn differently. And so I thought it would kind of be a cool opportunity to, as I'm updating the masterclass and doing all this stuff, to think about a more booky version of that as well. So yes, I'm working on that. But in terms of regular books, no, I don't have any plans to do anything like that. I don't really enjoy it in those sort of things when you're having to adhere to other people's requirements and their specifications and their timelines. And there's just too big a lag between creating the content and it being available. So I would rather, just do my own thing, but still understand people might want to do that sort of content. So I see someone passed their AZ900. Congrats. That's very cool. 300 the movie. Yes, We Are Sparta. That's a good idea, actually. We should do something like that. How are the chickens? The chickens are still doing well. I've not had to babysit for those that didn't see, my neighbors have chickens, and they also have kind of the male, the hen chicken. and he would attack me. So he took great pleasure in trying to kill me. And for people that laughed at me being scared of this chicken, realize they evolved from dinosaurs. So it's literally a dinosaur that I am protecting myself. So if you saw the video, I have like this mesh shield. And my wife locked me in with the mini dinosaur, as is what it is. And so I may have shrieked a little bit, tiny bit. We gloss over that. But yes, the chickens are doing better than I am. Just scrolling through the questions. Oh, thanks for taking selfies at Ignite. That was cool. That was my pleasure. How do you deal with the constant updates to the certification videos? I mean, so that is a challenging thing. Like for the AZ900 course, I created that as mini videos. So you've seen me, I've added and updated some of them over time. The study crams, if it's small updates, which a lot of them are, I mean, it just doesn't require an update. But you'll see things like the AZ104, I did a V2 of because it was a major update. There are some other ones that are on my map to create new versions, but realize the study crams are such a lot of work because there's so much to them and there's so much research and planning. They're a lot of work, and especially now I'm doing the Azure masterclass. I won't be updating the crams anytime soon, but yeah, I mean, I try and keep track of every month what changes in the certification paths. And if it is like a major change, then it goes on my list of, okay, I need to go and do something. Like the AI 900, that was a good example. With all the generative AI parts, I went and created a new generative AI part for AI 900, and then updated the non-generative part. So it just depends. It depends on what changes, and I'll kind of update it as it needs to. What's your favorite video game? So right now it's Call of Duty 6. And it's really the zombies. I don't do really the multiplayer PvP stuff or the campaign. But my oldest son, Kevin, we used to play Black Ops 2. And we used to do the zombies together. And now my younger kids are old enough, they're teenagers. We have started to get back into the zombie routine. So the three of us will play together. And son is my oldest son, he can play as well. And we play the zombies maps. So that the Black Ops and protecting the world from the zombie threat is a key element of the Savile household. How many Azure certifications do you have? Are they useful for you at work? I don't know. Really, the only reason I've ever done certifications is so I have an idea of what's in it, so I can create the study cram. In terms of, is it useful for me at work? I mean, no one I work with or my customers care about certifications I may have. That's not something they care about when I work with someone. Now, if you want to learn something, I think the certifications are useful because, hey, I want to learn about AI, for example. I'm new to AI, and I have zero clue about AI. Where do I start? Well, then the certifications can be nice from a learning perspective because it gives me a path that, hey, okay, I'll do the fundamentals and I need to look at these things and learn this, and it gives you those steps. And then if I want to continue, well, then there's another certification. So I can go and look out for that, and that would be my next step. So I think the certifications as an individual wanting to learn are useful because it gives me a path and things to care about. And sure, as an employer, it shows you have that base level of knowledge. Especially for more maybe entry positions, I think it's useful there. But as you're more established, I don't think they're as important. No one's going to be, or I'd be shocked if I wanted to speak to a customer and they were like, well, what certifications do you have? It's not, tends to be as big a deal. Do you think it's important to have a home lab to learn new tools? I mean, I think it's critical to have an environment to learn things. I don't think you can learn, I can't learn just by reading about something. In fact, I don't learn very well from just reading. Everyone is different. I learn by doing it. So you have to have somewhere you can go and do those things you're trying to do. Now, home lab may or may not be required. It depends. Like, I don't do many things in my home VM, for example. And everything I do is in the cloud these days. And even if it is something that might be more on-prem, say Active Directory or Windows Server, I can still run it in a VM. I mean, even things like Azure Arc, they have ArcBox, which runs as a big VM in Azure, and I can still learn all of the things, even the hypervisor elements. So I think it's less important for cloud type understandings and even the Microsoft stacks, but depends on what you're interested in. If I'm a real hardcore networking person, I probably want some switches. So then I probably do need that home lab to really complete that education. So I think it really comes down to what it is, but I think the hands-on part of whatever it is critical. You need some way that enables you to really use the technology, because until you use it, it doesn't not work. And it's only when it doesn't work is when you really learn it. So you have to get the opportunity to fail with the thing. So when it fails, then you have to go and dig in. And when you dig in, you actually learn it. And so you have to have that hands-on. Are there jobs available with Microsoft working with your team or in that type of broad architecture role? I mean, there's lots of jobs at Microsoft. I'll be quite honest, zero clue. My team, I personally am working on right now, does not have any openings. In terms of Microsoft as a whole, I'm sure there's lots of openings, but I don't look at the career site. I honestly have zero clue. My recommendation would be is if you are interested, I think they have a pretty big career site you could go and look at. I would understand what you're interested really in, specifically type of role. Is it customer facing? Is it trying to help customers architect saying? Is it working with the product group to make the products better, to make them more applicable? Like, have a clear idea and then go and kind of check those things out. Great presentation at Ignite. I'll be presenting to large crowds soon. Any tips and advice? I've been practicing quite a bit, but my memory isn't the best. I mean, everyone is different. Obviously, you want to... Now, I'll give the advice. It's not necessarily what I do. The whole point is to practice it and have it like really down in terms of the flow. I don't over practice because then I think you lose the spontaneity and some of the fun and energy of the presentation. So while I'll make sure I understand the content, I don't particularly practice the whole presentation because I kind of like to just off the cuff do the things for the most part. I think it's better. The important thing I would say though is don't over focus on worrying about if you make a mistake. The audience are not giving you all of their attention anyway. That's not a negative thing. If you make a mistake, you're fixated on it way more than the audience will. So you're going to make mistakes. You'll have little hiccups. Don't worry about it. They don't worry about it. No one is, oh, no, he made this mistake at this minute. Terrible. It just is like, this happened, carry on, have a laugh about it. If like my Ignite presentation, I mean, my demos, none of them worked for the first 20 minutes. The screen just kept blanking out. I mean, that's probably as bad as it can possibly get unless you walked out on stage without trousers on. I mean, it doesn't get much worse than that. And I kind of just carried on and I made the best of it because what can you do? There's no point just beating yourself up, and you do what you can with the situation. And so I would not overstress about, hey, in case you make a mistake, but I would just be very prepared. Like, make sure you know the content. Make sure, hey, if you got demonstrations, maybe have a video version of the demonstration in case your live environment doesn't work. Like, you want to be respectful of the time of the people attending. So know your content. Really focus the presentation on communicating the knowledge. Like, don't think, hey, I know this topic really well. I want to prove to the audience how much I know. It doesn't help them in any way. Focus on, okay, I have this content I want the audience to be able to absorb so they can do something useful with the knowledge. So everything you're doing in the presentation, frame it in, how can the audience absorb that knowledge and do something useful with it? So it's not, I think, as long as you keep the audience top of mind, I think that's the key thing. Just make sure you're prepared, know the content well, have keynotes to maybe remind yourself of the things you want to cover, but just try and enjoy it. And it's tough, especially if you're new in front of a lot of people, but just try and enjoy it. What is the best playlist for the AZ400 exam? I don't even know what AZ400 is. I mean, you're saying the DevOps masterclass, so I'm assuming it's the DevOps exam. I don't memorize every code for every exam. If it's the DevOps exam, I mean, my DevOps masterclass is not geared towards that certification. I think it would help with it, certainly. But I mean, I would also follow the Microsoft Learn modules. They are tailored to that exam, and they will help. I think I have it. I don't even know anymore. I think I have that exam cram. I'd have to go and check. I don't even remember anymore what I do or don't have. So that would help at the end of it. But yes, sure. I mean, the DevOps masterclass would definitely help with some of the core concepts. What emerging technology are you most excited about? I mean, there's kind of an obvious one there. You're going to say AI, because I think it has massive ability to change the way we do things. I mean, obviously AI is not new, but the generative AI and that creative element has, obviously, it's transformational. And I think it has the potential. I always think of in industrialization where, hey, humans used to go and build a lot of things by hand, and now machines can go and build those things by hand. I think if the generative AI continues as it's progressing, then, and all things going well, it becomes a partner for us, and some of the more repetitive things, it can help take over from that perspective. And obviously there's different levels of which it can achieve. But I mean, obviously AI is transformational. It's transforming now. It's going to continue to transform. I mean, the quantum computing stuff, I think when it's available en masse, but I think that's a ways away. More immediately, some of the identity stuff around sort of the passkey stuff is cool. And I think the passkey elements around the cross platforms and the cross vendor, I think that's got some cool stuff. But I mean, honestly, it's AI. Like a lot of the things I'm playing around with and trying to learn is because there's the generative AI, the model that can take the prompt and then inference out the next token. But it plays into so many other things. Like the RAG is an obvious one. I'll go and get information it wasn't trained on. But then you have abilities to also cache previous prompts. Then you have, well, the agentic, where it's actually a bit more autonomous, and I can have this agent doing this thing on its own and talking to this other agent, and then orchestration. But then there's content safety. Then there's, well, how is my data governance and protection? Like, there's so many elements to it. It's kind of fun. It's this new puzzle that there's a lot of pieces to, and I think working out how to put those puzzle pieces together is a really cool thing. What's your advice for someone who wants to go into IAM? I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, that's an interesting one. I mean, I would focus on obviously understanding firstly the core constructs around directory services. And I mean, obviously Active Directory is old, but it's still the source of truth in most of these things. So I would have a good grounding in Active Directory, then how you start extending from the NTLM to now the Kerberos, to then, hey, I have the cloud protocols and the SAML and the WS Feds, but then you get into the OAuth 2s and the OpenID connects, the shifts in, hey, I'm granting your ability to do something on my behalf, then go and understand the big identity providers, so the Entra IDs, etc., understanding the big work around passkeys. Why are passkeys so special? Oh, well, okay, well, it's talking this certain standard, but it requires proximity, which makes it phishing resistant. So I think getting those groundings are going to be important parts of that. But it's always tricky for me to answer these sorts of questions because that's not a role. And again, I try and be very transparent that I don't know if in is the correct word. It's a part of what I do, but I am definitely not an identity sort of access management specialist person. So I know what I focus on. I know the conversations I have. If you wanted to be an identity specialist, then it's all going to be about, well, what are the different interactions that you're going to have between identity providers? What are some of the interactions you're going to have to go with the HR system, those federated capabilities? What can it do around policies that it's applying? I mean, they're all going to be key elements. Will Google Cloud grow more than Azure? I mean, I'm going to say no, because I'm an Azure person. So you're never going to get, I pay zero attention to Google. I pay zero attention to AWS. I have vague concepts if they're doing something so I can help my customers understand, well, okay, this is how I would do this in Azure. But even then, I tend not to care about what I'm using this technology in AWS, what is the equivalent in Azure? Because they solved it in AWS a certain way based on what AWS can do, based on the requirement. I care a lot more about what is the requirement. This is how I would meet that requirement in Azure. I think if all you try and do is map, well, I did this in AWS or Google or wherever, what's the equivalent in Azure, you're missing out on the opportunity to maybe take advantage of, well, there's different capabilities in Azure that can do things a different way. It's far more useful to understand the requirement of what you want to achieve than just try and translate, well, this is our equivalent. This is what you should use. So I pay almost zero attention to what the other clouds do. I don't want to know. How many trainings do you have per week? I don't really fully understand the question, how many training. I mean, I try and create like 2 to 3 videos a week if that's the question. If it's fitness training, I work out 6 times a week. Sunday is my rest day. And I did see there was a question in LinkedIn, my split. So Monday, Thursday is chest and triceps. Tuesday, Friday is back and biceps. Wednesday, Saturday is sort of shoulders, legs. So that's how I split up my training. So I'm answering that question at the same time. Do you use AI tools for your day-to-day work? I mean, yes. You can't miss like the Copilot stuff like that. I'm constantly using the Copilot to, not that I'm not paying full attention during meetings. Absolutely, I'm always 100% focused on every meeting I attend. But to ask it, hey, can you summarize this? Or you've got a conflict and you can say, hey, can you summarize this? Can you summarize what action items I need to care about? You can ask it, hey, I'll ask it. Most of the things that I ask it about summarizations of stuff. Can you summarize the key points of this document? What were the key learnings from this? Like, they're the things that I use it for. I use the GitHub Copilot. So if I'm playing around with the coding stuff, if I'm trying to write something, I'll use the Copilot. Maybe it's say like, hey, how could I create this function? Or it might be, I've written this. How can I make it more efficient? Like, or this isn't working. Any ideas? So I tend to use those a lot. I mean, from the other AI tools, a lot of the focus is around, well, how do I make it only access the information I want it to access? So you get into those data governance conversations. And honestly, content safety, especially as you start doing more of the agentic things and it's maybe more autonomous, I need to be really confident in what it is autonomously creating. Like, is it still adhering to the things that I need it to be sticking to? So those are key points about that. Do you miss the UK? Have you ever been to Cornwall? I don't think I've been to Cornwall. I'm trying to think. I mean, I miss elements of the UK. I miss the countryside and things like that. But I'm not a big, I don't know, history person so much, visiting museums and stuff. And I was there obviously a long time, so I wouldn't say it's anything I'm particularly desperate. I miss some of the food from England, for sure. I'm very food centric. But no, I'm not particularly. Did you ever meet Vittoro? But I don't know who that is. Apologies. I'm terrible with names, so if that's offensive, huge apologies, but I don't even know who that person is. What tools do you use to keep up to date? I kind of answered that already. How many hours do I spend studying? I mean, that's really difficult, honestly, because obviously my job is the technology as well. And the channel sometimes is a side effect in terms of, hey, I had to go and learn this for a customer discussion. And now because I spent all that time, I'll go and create a video to help others learn it. And often it's the customer to learn it as well, because you can help kind of build on those constructs. But I would say it's probably a couple of hours most days. And yeah, I mean, Saturday I don't do any work. Like I work out, fitness, but I don't do any work. Saturday's family day. But Sunday from 4 a.m. till probably lunchtime, I'm just working on channel related things. So for 8 hours, and that's a big chunk of the learning stuff as well. What's your take on the future of identity? There's a lot of identity things here. I mean, obviously, the cloud first is the direction. I mean, there are companies that still have hybrid requirements. And I think there are still some struggles around, well, it's an on-prem app. I don't want to use a cloud identity provider. But as you look at the investments the cloud identity providers are making, things like the conditional access, things like the risk management, the privileged identity capabilities, the access reviews, the governance, it gets trickier and trickier because those same investments are typically not being made on the on-premises solution. So as a customer, you have to start to make those decisions. And there's been amazing work around the resiliency, especially, I can speak to Enter Intelligently, the stuff they've done about the regional secure token service and the backup authentication. It is really hardened it against the risk of some global level Entra issue. And so I think you can be more confident in those things. What is your take on the future of Azure Local and hybrid? I mean, really to that last point, I mean, hybrid is not going anywhere. Like there's always going to be certain anchors where I need stuff on premises. If you, maybe it's a mainframe, maybe it's regulatory requirement, maybe it's some physical piece of hardware that talks to things and there's certain latency requirements. Like there's always going to be on-prem things in a lot of organizations. So Azure Local, that's the ability for us to provide the platform to run those things on. And then of course you have things like Azure Arc, which is the ability to take the Azure control plane and then some of its capabilities on top of that to stuff you're running in other places. And no, I think it's going to be there for a long time and yeah, maybe forever. But I think it's interesting, the Azure Local stuff. And obviously they've collapsed it down into Azure Local from the Azure Stack Hub and Edge and all those other things. I think it will simplify things. And yeah, for people that use it, I think it's going to be a great capability. What would you like to learn 2025? I mean, honestly, the AI stuff to me is... yeah, I mean, I've said it like 50 times, I think, during this thing, sick of me saying it by now. I think that's the thing I'll focus on a lot. Now, that won't be at the expense of my kind of core bucket, which is more the Azure infrastructure, the app plat, the sort of data, the identity, security stuff. But, I mean, as the stretch thing, I think the AI, I think that's of interest me. Do you work closely with Mark Vuzinovich? No. I'm here. Mark is up there, so I probably wouldn't understand anything he said anyway. I'm not at that intellectual level. So it would just be like me talking to a goldfish, I'm sure. So no, I do not interact very much with Mark Vuzinovich. Would you consider doing a day in the life video, training, work, etc.? I've kind of done a video before about my routine. I mean, I guess it'd be funny maybe to put a camera on my head, I suppose, and walk through a typical day. It would really mean me getting up, me eating, my dog's attacking me, wanting some of whatever I'm eating, working out, me eating, doing some video stuff, me eating, working, me eating. It'd be a lot of eating. There'd just be a lot of meals scattered throughout the day. And so it may not be that interesting for most of the stuff. Like my job is I sit at this desk. My YouTube prep is I'm sitting at this desk. I try and get out in the afternoons now. And part of the reason I moved was I go and walk around in the forest and try and do that kind of stuff. But yeah. Did you build your house with your bare hands cutting the balls from fresh timber? Yes. No, I have no clue. I have no skills in that area whatsoever. If I can get a shelf to stay up and the stuff you put on the shelf to not slide to one end, that is a victorious day for John Saville. But that's really the extent of my capabilities. Have you never been on Hansel Minutes? No, I don't do any other things. Like, my channel, I don't have any guests on it. I don't want guests on it. And I really try and avoid being guests on other people's things. I'll do it occasionally, but I don't. Again, I want to keep enjoying it. I enjoy creating my content. I don't have guests on my channel because then that's a tricky one. You lose some of the control. And also there's just a different caliber of people. And as soon as you have one guest on the channel, you can no longer use the excuse that I don't have guests on my channel. And so suddenly then it'd be hard to say no to people, and I think my channel would suffer. So I have no intention of ever having guests and I don't have any intention of going on really other people's stuff if I can avoid it. Could you put the Batman mask on? No, I cannot. I tried. It was very disappointing. I had this whole intention of putting the mask on, but it's a very like stiff material. And even despite the lack of hair to otherwise get in the way, I cannot get it down my head. Maybe if I slathered my head in butter or something, maybe. But there is almost no sign that I think I can actually get that to fit on my head. So, no. I love the bookends. Yep, I'm a big kid. You can't see the rest of my whole office is essentially like what is behind me. I have a Captain America shield. I have a Harley Davidson case with a bunch of like comic things in it. I have Conan the Barbarian sword. I have like cases full of my whole office is a big kids area. It was really cool when I moved. So my office is now the space above the double garage and my gym. So it's a really big space now. It's this massive office. And so I just had all this space to fill up with stuff. So it was really cool. It was a lot of fun. What does the tattoo on your arm mean? So I have two. So I have my Ironman tattoo, which I got when I did my first ever Ironman. And this one I got when I competed in the World Championship Ironman in Hawaii. And it was someone who's from Hawaii created it. And it was really cool because you spent an hour, 2 hours just talking. He was asking me questions. And so all of the different patterns mean different things that represent elements of me and my family. And so the tiger shark is because that's for Hawaii. And then all of the shapes and the patterns on it represent different elements of me and my family. So it was a kind of a really cool thing. And I always said when I did Hawaii Ironman, I would get the tiger shark. So that's why I got it. That's where that came from. Is the masterclass free? Yes, everything on my channel is free. There's no advertising on the channel. There's no sponsors on the channel. I don't make a penny from the channel. And that always comes up. I don't want to. I have no, and I'm blessed. And this is not a critique on people that do make money from content at all. I'm lucky. I have a good job. I don't want to put adverts on the channel because I think it would interrupt people. Also, I think I don't have any control about what those adverts are. So you might get some unscrupulous stuff trying to con you or take you in a different direction. But also, the channel is my way of giving back. And I think if I earn money from it, it's a side job. I might still be giving back, but I think if I profit from it, it's different. So I don't want to profit from what I consider my way to help others. So that's a fundamental thing I don't want to earn because it's a way to give back. So that's really that. So yes, everything's free on the channel. Can you disclose a bit more about your role at Microsoft? So my role actually changed. I was originally a technical specialist when I joined Microsoft 15 years ago. And then I was the chief architect in the Microsoft Technology Center. And then I became a cloud solution architect 5 years after that. All of my roles have been the same. Fundamentally, the role was to talk to customers, understand what they're trying to achieve, and help them achieve it. Like taking out all the fancy or other things, my role was always at Microsoft being to help the customer be successful. The Americas for Microsoft, like all the Americas, created an office of the CTO for this financial year. And I was asked to join that as chief architect. So now I'm in the Americas office of the CTO. So I will report to the CTO, who reports to the president of all of the Americas of Microsoft. But my role is the same. My role is still to work with customers and help them be successful. That's it. It's just now the potential customers I get to work with are over a broader area, whereas in my previous roles, it was maybe one part of the United States. But my role is to work with the customer, understand what they're trying to do. And it might be trying to help them architect a solution. It might be we're hitting this roadblock. How can we be successful? It might be accelerating something. I'm not pre-sales or post-sales. I'm anything at all. And so I just focus on how I can help. And it's great. It's cool to have that kind of flexibility. What Ironmans are you planning to do this year? So I'm not doing any fulls anymore. Honestly, there's two reasons for that. After I did Hawaii, it was always the goal to do Hawaii, and it broke me a little bit. It turns out I had COVID during Hawaii. I didn't realize at the time, but I woke up the morning of the Ironman, and I was sore and I was exhausted just walking to the event. I was saying to my wife, I was like, I feel terrible. I just feel terrible. And I still did it. But I was like last air, like the swim was just brutal. I didn't enjoy any element of it. I was struggling. The bike, I couldn't put out any power. I was doing like 150, 160 watts, whereas normally I would do 200. I had to walk the entire, like it was this miserable experience. And then the next day, I couldn't taste anything. So you go and do the COVID test, and I've got COVID. So I did the Ironman with COVID. And it was just so horrible. It broke me mentally a little bit. But also, it's so much training. My plan is to now do half Ironman. So I'm going to do the Coeur d'Alene half this year. I might do a few other ones that I see around, but definitely I want to spend more time with the family. Now I've moved up here. I want to do more outdoorsy things. So I don't want to spend 8 hours on a bike in the gym. So the half Ironmans are probably what I'll focus on going forward. What tools do you use? I mean, I record with OBS Studio, so I like OBS Studio. It's really useful. It lets me, I don't edit my videos, and I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. I don't want to do it. Like, my hobby is creating the content. My hobby is not editing content. So I don't edit my content. So I have a little stream deck when I'm recording, so I can switch between the video and the demo screen and the ending screen. Like, it's all buttons on a stream deck. I do zero editing. If I do a huge colossal failure, then sure, I'll edit that out to be respectful of your time. But right, it's OBS Studio. The final render, I use DaVinci Resolve. So OBS Studio creates the raw file, and then I put it into DaVinci Resolve just to create the output with the right bit rate and things like that to then update it to YouTube. So I don't have a particularly sophisticated set of tools because I don't do anything to the content. But OBS Studio is free and it's really good. So I would 100% recommend OBS Studio. Any tips on building discipline? Serial procrastinator. It's just really difficult, and I totally get it. Like, I don't think there's any magic to it. The thing I would say is try and change one element at a time. If you have the whole bunch of different things you want to do and you try and tackle them all at once, you're going to fail because we have so much willpower. And if we try and split it on 4 different things, there's no way. So I would say pick one element and just focus on that one element. Just don't be aggressive in it. Just one element, a little bit of success, and build on that success, and do that for 6 weeks. And then hopefully after 6 weeks, it's more of a habit, and then you can try and go and change something else. So I would really focus on just don't make it a choice. It's what you do. If you're struggling, count down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go and do it. Don't decide. Don't wonder. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is what I'm doing. And just do it. And repeat that every time. And then it becomes a habit. And then go on to the next thing and the next thing, etc. I'm trying to see. There's a lot of similar questions. How did you go about transitioning from cloud engineering roles to architect roles? I mean, honestly, all my roles have always had elements of architecture in them. I wouldn't say I transitioned particularly. I was never someone that was just trying to explain the technology and leave it at that. Like, it was always in the scope of, okay, what are you trying to achieve? This is how these components will work together. These are the security implications. These are the monitoring implications. These are the operational processes you're going to have. But I mean, I guess if today you're focused on a specific element, the best thing you can do is to start paying attention to what are the connections your particular element has to other elements, and what are the implications and design decisions of that. And then what are some of the all-up processes and the operational considerations and the security and the identity considerations of those things? If there is an architect, can you maybe shadow them? Can you partner with them to try to adopt to some of what they do? But I think it's really about, from an architecture perspective, it's communicating. Like, I have to be able to understand the requirements from my customer. If I'm just a specialist in a technology, I talk about the technology. If I'm an architect, most of what I really am doing is trying to understand the requirement, what matters most, and then map that to a solution that meets those requirements. So there's a lot more understanding and communication, I think, in an architect role than maybe just explaining this is what this technology does, or break fixing. An architect is really about getting to the crux, what they really care about of the requirement, because sometimes they don't even know. You can talk to a customer and say, we need this, but you just have to keep digging and digging as to, well, why are you asking for that? Why are you asking for this? Why? Until you get to the underlying requirement, which actually they may have made some assumption about what they need, and it's not true. So you need to really make sure you're at the root. And I ask, and I'll say, hey, this may seem like a simple question. I apologize. Just explain to me why you need this. Like, what is this solving for you? And it goes to one thing, and that might not actually be a real requirement. Okay, but why that? Like, get to the actual thing, and then you start mapping it to, well, how do I meet that for you? And that's why I think the big difference in what you need to do as an architect. What's your opinion of HashiCorp products? I honestly don't do a lot with HashiCorp. Like Terraform, obviously, and I think that's great if I'm in a multi-cloud scenario or cloud and prem, great. I do not do anything with anything else HashiCorp does, so I cannot speak intelligently about anything to do with HashiCorp. Have you ever dealt with imposter syndrome in your career? I think everyone does, especially when I was younger. I think when I was younger, people think, or they feel you know these things, and it's like, well, no, I know X amount. And I think today I'm just very transparent with everyone. Like, I'll be like, hey, look, I can help you. If I don't know, I will go and find out. I don't know everything. I don't pretend to say I know everything. I'll be very upfront to say I don't know everything. But what I will do is, I think I'll listen well. I'll ask the questions. I will work out what you need, and then I will track down that solution. Like that is what I will do. So I think imposter syndrome is a good thing. I think if you don't suffer that, if you've never had that, there's probably an element of arrogance, and you're not as good as you think you are. I think all of us probably at some point say, do I really know this well enough? And I think that's a good thing to constantly question, and that questioning will make you want to improve and learn more and do more. So I think, yes. I think the navigation of it is realize maybe I'm not confident on this thing. What can I do to build confidence in that? Hey, can I go and try this thing out? Or if I'm going to talk to a customer on something, have I actually really done this? Like, a lot of times it's imposter because I'm going to talk about something that I've not done, or I read it, but I'm not super confident. So go and actually do that thing ahead of time to build the confidence so I can speak intelligently and with experience about something. And if there isn't the ability to do that because it's just impractical, can I partner with someone? Never be afraid to bring in someone else and work with them, because then you can learn from them. The customer benefits that they're getting that knowledge as well, and really everyone benefits there. So I would say never be afraid to ask for help and partner with someone, and your intern will be able to go and help them in the future. So I think that's a key thing. How did you get rid of the pen sound on the board? So AI. So yes, they're obviously, and I'll be honest, it used to drive me nuts when people would comment on the pen makes sound on the board. Yep. Two physical objects suddenly collide. Yep. Those molecules hitting, it makes a wave and you hear it. What do you want me to do? I can't do magic. And but DaVinci Resolve has a nice little AI capability now that using AI, it learns my voice and it takes other stuff out of it. And so that's what I started to do. So the last 6 months since they added that capability, I now run an AI pass over the audio. So it takes out anything that isn't my voice. So that's how I got rid of the knocking sound on the board. I didn't put marshmallow over the tip of the pen. It's AI. It's still there, but AI goes and takes it out. Are you planning on doing more events like Ignite in the future? So I never planned to do Ignite. I spoke at the last 2 because the product group, the EntropG, asked me to present. I never submit a session. It's going to sound the wrong way. I never seek out to do them. I was asked to do it by the product group, and I was happy to help. But I've never planned to do talking at any event. Any event I talk at is because they've asked me to do it. So no, I have no plan to do any talks, but I'm assuming I will again at some point. Awesome Mix One playlist. I don't know what that is. Any thoughts on decentralized identities? I mean, I think it's going to be important. I did and that was one of those things where I spent a whole bunch of time researching it, and it was interesting to do. I think someone having the ability to own the identity and control what information about that identity is released to another party, that verifier, is key. And so I think as time goes on, it will become a bigger and bigger capability that we as human beings want to be able to control the flow of information about us, because really we are what others say about us in reality. And so it would be nice if we have that control. And so I think it's going to grow. I think that will be a much bigger thing. Do you know anything about Cloud Support Associate? No. Do you not monetize your videos? No. So I think I've answered this already. I don't monetize the videos. I don't want to monetize the videos. People always say, add ads. We want to support you in your work. That's appreciated. But again, I'm blessed and lucky. I have a good role at Microsoft. I have zero desire to earn money from the channel. Now, if my life changed and I needed the money, I'm not saying I never would, but touch wood. I never intend to put any kind of advertising or sponsorship on the channel. I don't want to. I just want it to be what I can do to help other people. I don't want to earn money from it. I don't really recommend courses on things. Do I think Azure DevOps will be replaced by GitHub and GitHub Actions in the long term? Yes, I would think so. I mean, there's gaps in functionality, especially I think around some of the planning capabilities and the board capabilities. But I would fully expect over time, and again, I'm not part of that PGs. This is my opinion. This is not fact, but correct. I would expect over time, GitHub and GitHub Actions long term would be the path. I suspect that will be where a lot of the investment will go. Thoughts on the new Superman trailer? I was excited when I saw crypto. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little bit was like, oh, another Superman, but the crypto really kind of, I was like, oh, that's cool. Okay, crypto being in the film, that was cool. When he whistled and the dog ran, that was pretty cool. So we like the crypto bit. And I guess I know obviously we're at kind of time now. Do your customers recognize you from the YouTube channel? Yes. It's always funny. Like more and more people these days recognize me from the channel, and it's cool. It helps, and there's a certain element of trust that's nice. So I can talk to a customer, and normally you need to kind of build some credibility first, which is acceptable. I tend to these days be able to walk in with that, which is nice. And again, it's a privilege to have that. The product groups, most of them know who I am now, so that helps as well. So I can talk to them, and by talking to them, I can create better content for you. So it's kind of a win-win. But we are at time, so I will stop now. But I mean, I would really just end with I appreciate the support. Like, I'm glad the content's useful. I've no plans to change anything about anything, and so it's just carrying on as we are. And I enjoy doing it. Hopefully you enjoy it. And no, I hope I do another AMA soon. I'm sorry I didn't get to all the questions. Maybe there's some other way I could, I don't know, organize this in the future. I don't know a better way. This seems to work, but maybe a Reddit AMA or something. I don't know. But this was cool. I always love sort of these interactions. And so I hope this was useful. And until next video, I guess we say take care. But thank you. Thank you everyone for joining.